The next loop we're going to discuss is the for loop. The for loop is a count-controlled loop in the sense that a for loop always runs a specified number of times. There are no open conditions on a for loop. Let's start out by looking at the general form of the loop. As we start, I'm going to define LCV as loop control variable because I'm going to use that abbreviation here in a couple of places. The for loop begins with the keyword for, followed by an open parenthesis. Then, the first thing we do is we initialize a loop control variable, followed by a semicolon. Then, perform a relational test on the loop control variable. And then follow that, we modify the loop control variable in some way. And I'll explain how all that works in just a moment. Then we have an open brace for our loop body. And then we have our statements. And then we have our closed loop. So clearly all of the work other than for the processing is done in what we'll call the heading of the for loop. Because this general form doesn't give you very much of a clear understanding of how a for loop works, let's look at a very simple example. First of all, we will do the same program we ran when we first looked at while loops. We're going to display hello world 5 times. So we'll start out with the for loop. So we begin with the keyword for, and then an open parentheses. Now we're going to initialize our loop control variable, and we're going to name it I, very simple name, and we're going to initialize it to 1. And then our relational test is while I is less than or equal to 5. Our modification of the loop control variable will be to increment it by 1 each time. So notice how compact the for loop is. We get most of our work done in these 3 very simple statements. Then we open the body, move over underneath it, and we're going to write system out print line hello world, and then close the body of the loop. And that's all we have to do. So let's compile and run this program. So we'll save it. Java C chap 9 part 5.java, and then Java chap 9 part 5, and there's hello world 5 times. So for each value of I from 1 to 5, we perform the statements in the body. In this case, it's displaying the phrase hello world. So I will get values from 1 to 5 via this increment. And that's how a for loop works. So let's do another example. This time let's print 1 through 100. Very simple thing. And let's do it by 2s. So we're going to go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Let's do the odd numbers, in other words. So we'll wipe this out and start over again rather than try to modify it. So we start with the keyword for, int I equal 1. You'll notice I use I a lot for the loop control variable. That's just a convention or a style. It's not a requirement. Your loop control variable can be any name you want. It is common, though, in for loops to use a single letter variable. Even though when we first started talking about variables, we suggested that you use mnemonic names for variables, and we still believe that's true. But for a for loop, it's okay to use a 1-letter, 2-letter variable name because the loop control variable is always close to where it's being used, and it's easy to remember or go back and look to see what that variable name is for. So we're going to say while I is less than or equal to 100, because we want to print the odd numbers from 1 to 100, not inclusive all the way through 101, for example. So we're going to stop. And here our modification statement is going to be I plus equal 2, which is the reason I use this example, was to demonstrate how the modification part of this for loop can differ from just a simple increment. And then all we're going to do here is write out the value. So we're going to write system out print I, then we close the loop body, save the file, come back to our DOS prompt, and then run it, and there we have the numbers 1 through 99. Just the odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. You see those there. Let's look at one more example. This time I'm going to sum the integers 1 through 10, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. So we'll start over again. Here I need another variable, the sum, so we'll declare sum and set it to 0. And then we're going to say for int I equal 1, I less than equal to 10, plus plus I, sum plus equal I, and write out the result. System out print line, save the file, Let's clear the screen here. Compile and run. And the sum of 1 to 10 is 55. So looking at this program, what's happening is for each value of I from 1 to 10, we're adding it into sum. So the first time through, we add 1 to 0 to get 1. Then we add 2 to 1 to get 3. Then we add 3 to 3 to get 6, and so on and so forth until we get to 10. And that's 45 plus 10 is 55. And then once I reaches 11, 11 is not less than or equal to 10, it stops. And I haven't really emphasized that part of it because I think by now you understand how the relational expression works. And that's all that is, another relational expression. It's just not in parentheses because this whole part is in parentheses. So that's an overview of how the for loop works. And I'd like to go ahead now and move on to the next lesson where we look at how for loops work.